What's your name?
Elizabeth.
What do you do here?
I am the case manager here and acting coordinator right now.
Have you yourself ever been homeless?
I have. The first time I was 13 years old.
I understand certain percentage of students in
Yeah.
the town are homeless.
In Columbia, we have about 15%, I believe, who are homeless. The child poverty rate is a lot higher. It's above 90%, I believe. And we currently have 2 guests that have children who are considered homeless because their parents are homeless.
How did you start working at the shelter?
I started as a volunteer in 2019. COVID came and there was a need for food to be delivered to the local community. So I was driving boxes of food. We did 250 a week, I believe, to the community. And then as different positions opened up in the organization, I kind of worked my way. I'm now the case manager here.
Do you feel that residents are treated differently by members of the general public because they're homeless?
I do, especially if they kind of give off the look of what you would consider a stereotype of a homeless person. If that's noticeable enough in them, they're definitely treated differently. Some positively in the community, but people higher up in status of the community, they're not as friendly with them. As well as here in the shelter, some individuals have been targeted because they're homeless, because they're here, and people are just pretty judgmental of that.
I understand you have created a goal system for the guests here.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
So we have 4 categories of goals that we set: personal health, social and spiritual, finances and career, and housing preparation. So when they come into the program, the first thing that they need to do is do an intake with me, and they set these goals. And then they meet with me once a week to track their progress. The vouchers extend every 30 days, and as long as the individual has made progress in these areas, we're able to extend their vouchers.
So do you feel this gives them a sense of structure?
Absolutely. We include volunteering, a volunteer schedule. They each have 3 days or more that they volunteer. Including Adopt-A-Block. We go out and pick up trash around the community, interact with the community members. We even clean up the borough parks.
Do you feel safe working here?
Absolutely. We do background checks here for every individual that comes in. There's also a volunteer check when they start volunteering and stuff. There's a more extensive background checking involved. So we know basically a criminal history of anybody that's coming in. And anyone with violent charges in the last 5 years or excessively violent charges would not be admitted into the shelter, as well as we don't allow sex offenders in the shelter.
What do you want the community at large to know about homeless people, shelter living, homelessness, etc.?
Overall, I would say that it can happen to anyone at any age, including children, on up through seniors. I don't believe our community is doing the right thing by limiting affordable housing in the area, and I don't think it's right that some of our council and mayor believe that other communities should take in the people that they reject. One individual I'm familiar with who's an unsheltered guest has been pushed clear up to Bainbridge, and he rides his bike here every day. He was born back when we had Columbia Hospital here. He's now in his 70s. He has some paranoia and stuff going on, so he doesn't really able to come into the shelter. But he's overall a clean person and a respectful person, helpful. And I just don't think it's right at all to push people out of the community. Homelessness is a nationwide problem right now. Not supporting a shelter or healthy environment to overcome homelessness doesn't make sense to me. And I feel like some of the council are acting more like businessmen than community leaders. So overall, I don't know why that they would say they're afraid. Also, homeless people here in our community have either been taxpayers or are taxpayers because they acquire jobs when they come here too, if they're able. or our potential future taxpayers. Some people can overcome enough to become a homeowner. Some people, even if they're renting, they're still contributing to our taxes in this town, because that money is going towards taxes. So I think that they're relying more on stereotypes than they are statistics of, how many people have been housed coming through here, or found jobs, or really connected to any resources. We have counselors who come here, and when you're homeless, you usually don't have transportation to get to appointments. Columbia lacks mental health support, so we have counselors and caseworkers who are able to come here and connect with them, rather than them having to find a way to get to their appointments. So I would encourage a lot of people who are able to support the shelter. We have church groups that come in here and serve seniors. They're not afraid of the homeless. I would even encourage council members and maybe the mayor to come out and serve, to get to know instead of being afraid of the unknown.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
What's your name?
Randy Young.
So I take it you've been here at the shelter. You lived here for a while.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
I went through a rough patch. I've been in Columbia my entire life, and I was just going through a rough patch, and the shelter took me in when I needed it the most.
Okay.
They gave me a couple chores, gave me a bed to lay in, warm shower, so hot meals.
So that helped you.
Helped me get to where I needed to be, where I am now.
Okay. And can you talk about where you are now?
I am a homeowner. I live right up on 4th Street. Got a beautiful home, good job, car, everything I need.
So what can you say about the situation of being homeless? In other words, what sort of experiences have you had? I take it that you were homeless before you got to the shelter, maybe?
Before the shelter, I was sleeping on the street. I woke up in the snow, buried in snow. Like, I've been down to the bottom and worked my way up. And the shelter did help me a little bit.
So how long did you undergo that before you came to the shelter, would you say?
I was homeless for about 2 years before I came to the shelter.
Okay, and you've been at the shelter. You were at the shelter for how long?
I was at the shelter for I would say about 2 months.
Okay. Did you have certain responsibilities?
Yes.
Here?
I cleaned the showers and I cleaned the floors.
Okay. Did you have a curfew you had to abide by?
I had to be in at that time. I had to be in at like 9 o'clock, something like that. I think it's still the same.
Okay. When you went through that period, did you feel like you were treated differently by members of the general public because you were homeless?
I feel everybody treats homeless people differently, and no matter where you go, but there wasn't no allegations towards anybody like me back then. Now it's a little different. I understand there's people that are weary of somebody in that situation. There's no reason to be. Like, just normal people.
Well, you're an example of someone who has gone through the system.
Yes.
And has lifted himself up.
Yes.
So that is possible. And do you think that's what most people want to do when they're in the...
They just need to get the fire under their feet.
Right.
And that's what they're trying to do here.
Would you say they just need temporary help for a temporary situation?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you would want members of the general public to know about what it's like to be homeless or homeless people in general?
We don't expect to be homeless. And when it happens, it puts us in a state of mind of we're low. We're lower than the lower. But there's there's room for improvement, and it could happen to anybody. You could be the richest man alive and end up being homeless. It could happen. It could happen. There's not really much to explain about it, because some people don't want to listen. Some people will listen, but the ones that aren't listening are the ones that are putting what's the word?
Giving homelessness a bad.
Yeah, giving us a bad name and stuff.
Yeah,
And
right.
there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, it happens. It's a hard spot in life.
Would you
And
say the majority of people want to succeed, want to
yes,
do
they
better?
want to succeed, they want to get better, and they want to get out. They want to be able to be in the feet of where they were or better. That's where I'm at. I made it. I finally made it.
Thank you, Randy.
Yes.
What's your name?
My name is Kellop. Goodly.
How long have you been in Columbia?
I've been in Columbia a long time. I've been, this time I'm over to my address. I've been there over a year. I'm originally that raised my children up here in Columbia.
And I understand you live near the shelter.
I live right across the street from the shelter.
And what's your impression of the shelter?
My impression is the shelter to help the needs and help everyone that needs help, that can go out in a better place than whatever their problems were, that the shelter can overcome them and leave here a better place.
Have you interacted, in other words, talked to some of
I have
the
spoke
shelter
with some of
residents?
them and even went and bought them something to eat and sit down at the table and ask them, why are you here? Why are you here and what brought you here? You know, and to see if we can not let them go through the same thing and whatever they got on mind, that we can help them overachieve that in their minds or in their way.
Right. So you've had a positive feeling from the residents. In other words, you think this helps them.
It helps them. It helps them in every way. All we want to do is put them out to work. That they have something to do. Show them better place. Better. This is not just a place where they just sleep. Okay. They get out and find a job. They get out and find a better something for themselves.
So do you think it should be just a temporary
It
situation?
should be a temporary situation where they, for the people, come in temporary to give others a chance to come in and get help too.
I think you've heard that the shelter may be moving, may be shutting down at this location. How do you feel about that?
Well, I heard that the shelters will be shutting down, and I feel kind of upset. I'm not upset about it, but not the way I've said it. I would like to see it keep going because of for other people's and do a better roundup for where it was. You know, have people here that cares from where they're going, why they're here, and they come here to help themselves, not just making a living quarters and what they is. Right. And that's the problem that we have. And once we can zero that problem in, then we would have a better shelter and show that we're doing something for them, you know.
Sounds like you've had positive interactions with the residents here. How do you think the rest of the general public looks at residents or homeless people in general?
Well, what happens is the peoples is around, and not all peoples, and I hate to say, but just because a person's down, that don't mean that person's a bad person. And they might have did wrong thing, they might have showed their way bad, but that inside it doesn't mean they're wrong person. So they need to be corrected. Okay, we're sorry for that for the community. But the whole thing, as I see, if they here in the shelter, I think that they could do better as long as you push them to do better for themselves. And once they find out they just can't stay here and not have the people take care of them, well, this would make it better for the shelter, to make so that other peoples or another lady or young man or would come in and we can return that help to them. Move over and let somebody else come in that needs the help. If they don't want to receive the help, well then they need to move on.
Okay. Thank you, Kellop.
You're welcome.